All right, so you want to deep dive into The Godfather, huh?
Sounds like it.
Maybe thinking about a rewatch or just curious why it's, still considered one of the greats after all these years.
Yeah, it's definitely stood the test of time.
Well, stick with us. We're going beyond just like the basic plot points here.
We're going to get into the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. We've got excerpts from Roger Ebert's review, and we're going to use his insights to unpack what makes this film so captivating.
Ebert was great at going beyond just thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah, he really dug into the why.
Exactly.
So let's jump into it. This idea of The Godfather creating its own world, right?
Okay, yeah.
Ebert talks about how it almost makes us forget the real-world harm the Mafia causes.
It's interesting how they pull that off. I mean, think about you see very little of the impact of the Corleone family's actions on everyday people.
Right.
No random acts of violence on civilians, no terrified citizens.
It's all very internal.
Yeah, it's all about the inner workings of the family and their rivalries with other mob families.
Yeah, and that definitely shapes how we view them, right?
For sure.
So within this carefully constructed world, Ebert argues that Don Vito is actually positioned as a kind of moral center.
Interesting.
I know that might sound crazy given,
Given what he does for a living.
Exactly.
But the film uses some clever techniques to make us see him that way.
Yeah.
For instance, Ebert highlights a quote where Don Vito draws a line in the sand when it comes to drugs.
Yeah, okay.
He sees them as different from liquor, gambling, even women, which he seems to view as more acceptable vices.
Oh.
Yeah.
So is the film trying to say that the Don is actually a good guy?
Well,
Or is there something more going on there?
that's where it gets really interesting, right? It makes us question whether we're being manipulated as viewers.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, is the Don's opposition to the drug trade truly moral? Or is it just good business strategy?
Hmm.
And does the film want us to sympathize with him despite his ruthlessness?
Right, because it's not like he's losing sleep over, ordering hits on people.
Exactly. And this ties into another point Ebert makes. The way the film elevates loyalty above almost everything else.
Above family even sometimes.
Sometimes even above family ties.
The perfect example is how Michael keeps his plans to murder the heads of the other families a complete secret.
Oh, yeah. Great example.
Doesn't even tell Tom Hagen.
Who's basically family at this point.
Exact.
It's a chilling reminder of what loyalty means in this world.
Right.
It's not just about affection. It's about blind obedience and complicity, no matter how brutal the consequences.
Okay, so moving on, Ebert also points out something I'd never really considered before. The lack of strong female characters in The Godfather.
Interesting. Yeah.
He even asks, what's Don Vito's wife's name?
It's Connie's mother, but yeah.
But yeah, good luck remembering that.
Exactly.
And even the more prominent female characters, like Kay and Apollonia, they're basically there to serve the needs of the men in their lives.
Yeah, they're not really driving the plot.
Yeah, their stories are secondary. It's like we're seeing this world entirely through a male lens.
Which makes sense given the context of the Mafia, in that era.
Yeah, of course. But it's still an interesting observation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It makes you realize how much the film is focused on this very specific, very male-dominated power structure.
Right.
The women are there, but they're not really driving the action or influencing decisions.
Okay, so we've got this morally complex world. Lines between good and bad are blurred, loyalty trumps everything, and women are mostly sidelined.
Yeah, that about sums it up so far.
But on top of all that, Ebert reminds us that The Godfather is also a masterclass in filmmaking.
Absolutely. Ebert raves about Gordon Willis's cinematography.
Okay.
He uses darkness and shadow to create this visual style that reflects the secrecy and danger of the Corleone's world.
Now, for people who might not be film buffs, what exactly does cinematography mean?
Yeah, so cinematography is basically the art of how the movie is shot.
Okay.
Think about the lighting, the camera angles, the composition of each shot.
Got
it. It all contributes to the mood and feel of the film.
So in The Godfather, the visuals themselves help draw us into this dark and mysterious world.
Exactly. And we can't forget about the music.
The music, yes.
Nino Rota's score is iconic. Those melodies instantly transport you back into the world of the Corleones. And they add so much emotional weight to the story. Think about the main theme. It's both beautiful and kind of haunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we've talked about how The Godfather creates its own world, the way it plays with our perceptions of good and bad, and even the technical brilliance of the filmmaking. But we haven't even touched on the performances yet.
The performances, yes.
Ebert raves about Marlon Brando and Al Pacino, of course.
Of course.
I mean, their performances are legendary for a reason.
They are.
Brando's Don Vito is so subtle, yet so powerful. Ebert even points out these little actor's devices Brando uses.
Right.
Like the puffy cheeks and the way he interacts with props. It's true.
Yeah.
But even though those choices are deliberate, they never feel like gimmicks. They add to this aura of quiet menace.
Yeah.
And then you have Pacino, who plays Michael with this incredible intensity.
Yeah.
He's very controlled, but you can see the wheels turning in his head as he's drawn deeper and deeper into the family business.
Like he's always thinking 10 steps ahead.
Yeah. It's like watching him transform right before our eyes.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the moral ambiguity, the importance of loyalty, the sidelining of women, and the masterful filmmaking. But I'm curious to hear from you, the listener. What's standing out to you so far?
What's fascinating is that Ebert doesn't just tell us what to think about The Godfather. He encourages us to engage with it on a deeper level, to question our own reactions to the characters and the choices they make.
And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting.
Yeah.
We're not just summarizing the review, we're using it as a springboard to explore the film's complexities and its lasting impact. Exactly. And we still have plenty more to uncover. We haven't even talked about the supporting cast, the film's exploration of the American dream, or its legacy in popular culture.
Oh, we've got a lot more to dive into.
But we'll get to all of that in part 2.
Okay, so we're back, and I'm still thinking about those incredible performances in The Godfather.
Yeah, me too.
Ebert really nailed it when he said that Brando and Pacino created characters that have become part of our cultural DNA.
It's true. You can't imagine anyone else playing those roles.
Nope.
Brando's Don Vito is the epitome of quiet power, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard.
Right.
And Pacino, as Michael, he goes through this incredible transformation from war hero to ruthless mob boss.
It's almost Shakespearean.
Yeah.
The way Michael's ambition and the weight of family legacy corrupts him.
Right.
Speaking of Shakespeare, I know Ebert raved about the supporting cast too.
Oh, yeah?
He compared Robert Duvall as Tom Hagen to a chameleon,
Totally.
completely disappearing into the role.
And think about Abe Vigoda as Tessio.
Oh, yeah.
He's introduced in this seemingly harmless way, dancing with a child at Connie's wedding.
Right.
But by the end, he's become this menacing figure, always lurking in the shadows.
Yeah, talk about range.
Right.
It's like each character adds another layer to this rich tapestry that Coppola has woven.
Yeah.
Okay, so beyond the acting and the directing, what about the bigger picture? Does The Godfather have something to say about the American dream, for example?
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
On the surface, it seems like the Corleones have achieved the American dream.
Right.
They've come from nothing and built a powerful empire.
Mm-hmm.
But the film shows us the dark side of that success.
Right.
The violence, the corruption, the toll it takes on their souls.
It's like they've sold their souls for a piece of the pie, but that pie is poisoned.
Ooh, like that.
And the irony is that Michael, the one who was supposed to escape the family business and live an honest life, he ends up being the most corrupted of them all.
Exactly. He starts out wanting to be legitimate, but the pull of family loyalty and the lure of power are too strong.
Yeah.
He becomes a tragic figure, a cautionary tale about the corrupting nature of ambition.
And it's interesting to think about how the film's portrayal of the Mafia might have resonated with audiences in the 1970s.
Oh, for sure.
When organized crime was still very much in the public consciousness.
Absolutely. The film came out during a time of social upheaval and disillusionment with authority.
Right.
The Watergate scandal was unfolding.
Right.
And there was a growing sense that power corrupts no matter who wields it.
So maybe audiences saw a reflection of their own anxieties in the Corleone family's rise and fall.
Possibly.
The film might have tapped into a collective fear about the dark underbelly of the American dream.
That's a great point.
Yep.
And it speaks to the film's enduring power. Even though it's set in a specific time and place, the themes it explores, family, loyalty, betrayal, ambition, those are timeless and universal.
And they're explored in such a visually stunning way. Remember when we were talking about cinematography earlier?
Oh, yeah?
The way Gordon Willis uses darkness and shadow to create this mood. It's like we're always peeking into a hidden world.
And the music. Nino Rota's score is so evocative. It heightens the emotion of every scene, from the tender moments to the brutal acts of violence.
Yeah.
Think about the baptism scene, how the music swells as Michael's men carry out the hits. It's chilling.
Talk about contrasting emotions. We've got the sacred ritual of baptism juxtaposed with this cold-blooded massacre.
Yeah.
It's a perfect example of how Coppola uses contrasting elements to create a truly unforgettable cinematic experience.
And it all comes back to Ebert's point about how the film makes us confront uncomfortable truths.
Yeah.
We're drawn to the Corleones. We might even sympathize with them at times, but we're also repulsed by their actions.
So as we're wrapping up part 2 of this deep dive, I'm curious to know, what's sticking with you, listener? What new perspectives has this conversation with Ebert as our guide opened up for you?
It's amazing how a film made over 50 years ago can still spark such lively discussion. The Godfather is a masterclass in storytelling, and I think Ebert's review helps us to appreciate its brilliance on a whole new level.
I couldn't agree more. But we're not done yet. We still have a whole third part to go. In the final section, we'll explore The Godfather's lasting legacy, its impact on popular culture, and we'll leave you with some final thoughts to ponder as you revisit this cinematic masterpiece. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into The Godfather.
That's been a good one.
It really has. We've covered a lot of ground, from, moral complexities to the brilliant filmmaking.
Definitely.
But I think it's time we tackled the elephant in the room. The film's legacy.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It is. I mean, it's been over 50 years since The Godfather was released.
I know.
And it's still considered one of the greatest films ever made.
Absolutely.
So why? Why do you think that is?
Well, its influence on popular culture is undeniable, right?
Oh.
I mean, you see it everywhere, from other movies and TV shows to music and even video games.
Oh, yeah.
It's everywhere.
Think about all the iconic lines that have become part of our everyday language.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. Leave the gun, take the cannoli.
A classic line.
You hear those phrases all the time.
I know. It's amazing how those lines, and even the characters themselves, have transcended the film and become these cultural touchstones.
Totally.
When you say The Godfather, and people instantly picture Marlon Brando sitting in that dimly lit study, stroking that cat.
It's such a powerful image.
Oh, yeah.
But the film's legacy goes beyond just catchphrases and iconic visuals.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm curious, what do you think makes The Godfather so enduring? Why does it still resonate with audiences today?
Well, I think part of it is because the film taps into these universal themes,
Okay.
that are as relevant now as they were back in the 1970s.
Yeah, like what?
Family, loyalty, betrayal, ambition.
Right.
These are all things that we grapple with in our own lives,
Yeah, for sure.
even if we're not running a mafia empire.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
And I think the film's exploration of the corrupting nature of power is especially timely.
Oh, absolutely.
We see it play out all the time in the real world, whether it's in politics or business, or even just our personal relationships.
Exactly. And The Godfather shows us how seductive that power can be,
Yeah.
right? It can corrupt even those with good intentions, like Michael.
Right. He wants to be legitimate, but then
But then the lure of power, it's just too strong.
it sucks him in.
And it's a cautionary tale that never gets old.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it's also a story about family
Mm-hmm.
and the lengths we'll go to protect the ones we love.
It is.
And I think that's another reason why The Godfather continues to resonate.
I agree.
It speaks to that, deep-seated human need for connection and belonging.
Right. And Coppola portrays the Corleone family in such a compelling way.
Yeah.
I mean, they're flawed, they're dysfunctional,
Right.
but they're also deeply loyal to each other.
They are.
And even though we might not condone their actions, we can understand the bonds that tie them together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a Shakespearean tragedy
Yeah.
where the characters are both heroes and villains.
Right.
And speaking of Shakespeare, the performances in The Godfather are just as timeless as the Bard's greatest works.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I mean, Brando, Pacino, Duvall, Camille.
So good.
They all deliver such unforgettable performances.
It's a true ensemble piece.
It is.
And I think that's part of what makes The Godfather so rewatchable, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can watch it multiple times and still discover new things.
Yeah,
New nuances in the performances, new layers of meaning in the story.
it's true.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the technical brilliance.
Oh, yeah.
The cinematography, the music, the editing, it's all top-notch.
Punch.
I mean, Gordon Willis's use of light and shadow is just masterful.
Oh, masterful.
It creates this atmosphere of secrecy and danger that's both beautiful and unsettling.
And Nino Rota's score. It's
Yeah.
so evocative.
Oh,
It perfectly captures the mood and emotion of every scene.
mm-hmm.
Think about that haunting main theme
Yeah.
or the operatic music that accompanies the violence.
Right.
It's also perfectly crafted.
It all comes together.
It does.
It's a testament to Coppola's vision.
Absolutely.
And his ability to bring together all these different elements, the acting, the writing, the music, the cinematography,
Yeah.
to create this truly unforgettable cinematic experience.
And I think that's what ultimately makes The Godfather such a masterpiece, right?
Yeah, why?
It's a film that works on so many levels.
Okay.
It's a crime drama, it's a family saga, it's a tragedy, it's a commentaries on the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of these things and more.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is.
And we've done our best to unpack it.
I think so.
We've reached the end of our deep dive into The Godfather.
It's gone by fast.
It has. Hopefully this has given you a new appreciation for the film, or at least given you some new things to think about as you rewatch it. So until next time, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and keep those minds engaged.
See you next time.